let's step on the beat. Make a man's runs, let me step out the case when the whole place scream, gotta get out there.
Paulie, you're back at BOXXER. How's it finally feel to be back in the UK and on our screens again?
Oh, it feels tremendously exciting, you know, to be back in the UK, back on the screens. It's been certainly been a challenging year for everybody, you know, but I am really passionate about the fact that there are certain things that we can bring to fans that bring them a level of excitement through these challenging times, you know, and I think being with BOXXER is one of them. You know, I think you know, people look to sports to really bring up their morale or give them a distraction from the chaotic times we've been going through. So I think a night of exciting fights, it can always be a solid distraction for that, and I think BOXXER always gives that.
Cool. And life around COVID for all live sports, but especially boxing, has been really difficult with dropouts, fights not happening. What's your sort of experience been the last year of what's been going on, and also how difficult is it for a company like BOXXER to pull off a Tuesday night fight night?
Yeah, you know, with COVID, it's been, I think boxing or combat sports in general have it kind of a little bit more difficult than other sports. You know, sometimes, don't get me wrong, you got a football match and Ronaldo gets COVID, like it happened at Juventus recently. Juventus is still going to play. Just, you know, Ronaldo's not going to play. But if you have a matchup, a solid matchup people are looking forward to, for example, and suddenly one of the boxers gets COVID, the entire show is in jeopardy, you know, especially if that is the key matchup of the show. So you've kind of you're always kind of trying to replace guys with other guys. You know, it's difficult to keep the excitement level of the shows going. So it's a real challenge for the matchmakers, a real challenge for the promoters. And I think that you know, it's been handled very well so far, but at the same time, I think it's a bit more difficult than it has been for other sports because of this exact thing.
And I'm not going to lie, it's been crazy. The preparation has been so much more difficult. But let's talk about the show on Tuesday. It's going to be crazy. It's 4-man, just going for it, even with more steam than the 8-man. It's Tuesday night. We've got some great fighters who've got signed. Can you just talk us through what's going to happen in the show you're thinking?
Well, don't get me wrong. The 8-man tournament is exciting. It lasts a bit longer, but you know, it's always exciting. But when you've got a shorter format, a 4-man tournament, you're already, you know, in other words, you're already halfway home. You know, you've just got the semifinals and finals. So I think there's a bit more grit. I think fighters are going to have that much more energy left for the finals, which if you give these fighters a bit more energy for the fight where everything is on the line, which is the final fight, I think maybe you can get an even more exciting final. You know, a lot of times with the 8-man format, and like I said, don't get me wrong, the 8-man format is exciting, but with the 8-man format, sometimes guys get to the finals really spent, you know? But I think this time, yes, there's a possibility that the semifinal fight will cause you to be spent. But at the same time, you're just going through one. And if you get through one and you get to the final, I think both our finalists will have, I think, certainly a similar amount of energy left to give their all for the finals, you know?
Okay, so you think it could be more explosive than ever?
I think it could be more explosive just because of the fact that there's more to give in the finals. There's more to give in the finals, and I think both guys will have a bit more in the tank. Sometimes what I've noticed in some of our finals is one guy has a lot more left than the other, and what may have been a good fight winds up being a blowout, you know, because one guy had a very difficult trek to the finals, and one guy, you know, may have knocked everybody out or may have had an easier time to the finals. So I think this time, while it's still a slight possibility, because you do have to win one fight, and that fight could be challenging, at the same time, I think with both fighters having one round extra of rest, so to speak, I think they'll be more keen to give it their all and have more in the tank to give their all with.
And we've got a couple of familiar faces with Zach Shelley and Ben Ridings fighting. They've been booked for a couple of months now, but we've obviously had a number of dropouts that's been challenging for the matchmakers. So we've got two new guys in, Mike McGoldrick and Harry Woods. But how exciting is that for them? How would you feel if you were a boxer coming in late notice? Would it be nervous, or is it actually a great opportunity? You know,
there's mixed feelings about coming in late as a late replacement or coming into the tournament late. You know, from one end, maybe limited time to really understand the format, maybe limited time to prepare for this kind of format. You know, you're going to be fighting more than once in a night if you do win. But at the same time, you're also excited for the opportunity, especially in a year like this where I think it's been harder for boxers who maybe aren't signed or don't have the long-term deals to get fights, you know? So I think getting thrust into an opportunity like this, because you call it an opportunity more than anything else, I think it's the positives severely outweigh the negatives, you know, certainly. And I think that at the end, no matter what pressures the fighters will have coming into the tournament, regardless of being late replacements, there's a certain amount of excitement where, again, this tournament has an opportunity to really get you to another level of your career, possibly, if you can win it.
So the favourite, well, a lot of people are calling him the favourite, is Zach Chelli. He had a really close fight. He had what he feels is a bad decision. And the person who he lost to is going on to fight for a British title eliminator. How do you think Zach's mind is, and what do you think his chances are going into this format?
Well, I think Zach, certainly his resume is not of the weakest resume. He's got some couple of solid wins on his record as well. And of course, with the defeat coming at the hands of somebody, you know, could be controversial, you know, could be that he does feel like he won that fight, and he certainly has a right to think that because it was a competitive fight. But nonetheless, I think just the fact that the opponent that he's got the defeat against also is moving on to bigger and better things shows him that he is on a higher level, and he probably feels that he deserves to be on a certain pedestal, moving up the ladder, moving up the ranks. So it's sort of a proving point for him to be able to win this tournament if he can pull it off.
And we've got a guy called Ben Ridings, who's like every day, I'm not joking, he sends in a picture of him sparring with Callum Smith. He's sparring with Liam and Callum Smith's brothers. He's with them every day. He's sort of saying that, watch out for me, because no one's getting better sparring and training than me at the moment.
Well, certainly if you're sparring with guys of that level, he's 100% right. It's not very easy to get that kind of level of sparring. But also, he is coming in with a little bit lesser level of opposition and a little bit less experience than does Chelli as a professional anyway. But nonetheless, he also brings a little bit of a different style matchup. You know, he's basically a mover, a guy who, you know, likes to use his jab. Notice he likes to use his jab a little bit, uses his legs a lot, really. He really floats a lot, you know. So he can be a guy who is difficult to kind of corner and trap in the format with Ultimate Boxer brings, which is just a few rounds, you know, and kind of maybe a difficult guy to figure out. Add into that the experience he's getting sparring the likes of Callum Smith, who's a phenomenal world-class fighter, obviously. And so, you know, he can be a bit tricky. These kind of tricky guys, they can be a bit extra tricky in a 3-round format because you don't get the time to figure them out. You've got to just kind of go and go and have at it and see what happens. And sometimes you may not have figured them out the entire 3 rounds. You kind of just got to fight them and see what happens, you know. Whereas in a longer fight, you've got a time to kind of study the movements and see what's happening before you kind of attempt your plan of attack into the middle to late rounds.
You obviously worked on a number of BOXXER cards. We've now signed Mikhail Lawal and Derek Azazi. You've seen them firsthand ringside. So we'd just like to understand 2 things. One, what you think of BOXXER actually signing fighters now who have succeeded on the shows, and what you think about these guys and who they're fighting. I think Azazi is quite a tough challenge.
Yeah, I think the fact that BOXXER is now signing some of the winners is a positive step into the maturing process of the company, the kind of evolution of the company. And it's interesting because I was discussing this with some people, and you know, it's sort of like a vetting process. You know, it's a vetting. You know, you kind of have the tournament, and you see who kind of stands above and beyond the rest, head and shoulders above the rest, wins the tournament, and then you can kind of decide, this is a guy we'd like to have on our roster. You know, this is, you know, not that you don't vet prospects when you sign them, but this time you really get the vetting process right in front of you. You get to see them in action all night and seeing really what they're made of, character-wise, skill-wise, determination-wise, and so on and so forth. So I think it's not only positive that BOXXER is signing fighters, but I think it's the format actually allows BOXXER to really vet to some really solid fighters, vet through some lesser fighters, and get to the really solid fighters they want to sign.
Okay. And
the matchups, right?
Yeah. So what have you seen in Azazi and Lawal? Why do you think we've gone for them, Simon? What did you see from him in the ring?
Well, Lawal brings a big punching style. He seems a mean guy in there. Both guys actually seem very mean in there. So you kind of look for that all the time. You look for that temperament, because as a fighter you need that temperament, and Lawal has that. Lawal also seems to be a big punching guy. Osazi, not that he punches soft, so he doesn't. But Osazi is a real uncomfortable guy to fight. Just not that fighting's ever comfortable, but Osazi just makes it as uncomfortable as possible. It's almost as if the more uncomfortable the fight is, the more comfortable he is. Whereas the less comfortable you are fighting him, you know? So he's the kind of guy, Osazi, he reminds me of the kind of opponent where you're never going to have an easy night, whether you beat him or lose to him. You're going to know you were in a fight. You know, Osazi lets you know you were in a fight, regardless, you know? And those kind of guys, you've got to come mentally ready and physically ready every single round, because they will not let you breathe in that way.
And we've been blown away as an organisation on Florian Marcu for a number of reasons. He's got some really crazy backing from his fans. We were saying, like, the country literally come stand still when he fights. But also, he's not scared. He's calling out O'Hara, Davies, Conor Ben. What are your thoughts on Marcu, and where do you see him going under the BOXXER organisation?
I think Marcu is a real budding possible star, you know. I think he's got a tremendous following, but also he has the skill set to back him. You know, he's comes from all kinds of fighting backgrounds, you know, not just boxing, you know. So he's a born fighter, and he has that mentality as a fighter, because he's competed in combat competitions besides boxing. So he knows the mentality, whether it's boxing, whether it's any other forms of combat. And obviously his performances have shown well. You know, he's got these quick hands, he understands his boxing, he's getting better every time out there. And the backing obviously puts him to a different level. The backing, anytime you have a fighter that has a lot of backing, you love to sell him, you love to kind of push him out there, market him. But Albanians really stick together, and Marco is an example of that, and I've noticed that with some other Albanian fighters, even in the States. They always come with a big backing, and some of them, not all of them are great. They're always tough, but not all of them are great fighters, you know? Some of them are just pretty solid fighters, but they always come with a lot of backing regardless. So when you have one like Marco, who can actually fight and skillfully fight, so he has a toughness and can skillfully fight, put it together, has this crazy backing, which, especially once you're going to have fans back, you can really get more excited about it, because this guy fills arenas on his own. Doesn't matter who he's fighting. So can you imagine if BOXXER can take him to a level where he's fighting at a world-class level? I mean, this guy has a possibility to fill up some big arenas, if not stadiums, one day.
And finally, you've obviously had a little bit of a hiatus in America, working on live TV. How has that been, and how excited are you to be back on our screens, bringing your energy that you bring? Because, to be honest, our fans absolutely love you.
Yeah, I've had a hiatus this year. Well, this year has been just a hiatus in general, right? But myself personally, I've had a hiatus working on the screens in boxing. I don't think I've worked almost this entire year. So really, to be back, and to be back in the place where boxing is most appreciated. In my experience, in my career, I feel that the UK is the place that appreciates boxing, boxers the most. So while we're in chaotic times where maybe there's no fans to hear live, at the same time, you just know that when you're in the UK, you're going to get the big TV viewership. You're going to get that excitement factor from the fans. Maybe you can't hear it, but you know they're watching. So to be back in front of the UK fans is, I wouldn't want to be back any other way, at least to make my return debut, so to speak.
And just, I guess one more thing is, for us, there's been a lot of pay-per-views on Sky and BT. This is going to be live for everybody. It's ITV4. It's also on BT Sport.
Terrestrial.
Yeah. So what would you say to the fans, sort of, who are thinking about tuning in? What's going to happen?
I mean, I think really sports is the best distraction, and combat sports, especially an exciting format like BOXXER gives you. I don't think we've had a BOXXER night where fans just weren't ultra excited by the end of the night, just at all the action we had. You know, the format itself brings action. The fighters we have bring action. And the determination these guys have, because they're all up-and-coming guys. You know, they still have a lot to prove. So not only are they guys who feel like they can prove something because their records are good and they feel like there's a possible future for them, but their mentality is also that they are going to reach something. Now you're putting them against each other. You know, so in that regard, you're always going to get a great fight. And then knowing that there's a short amount of time for these rounds to get the win or the loss, it's a rush situation, so you're not feeling each other out. You're going right at it. So I think for the terrestrial TV fans, this is the best kind of way to get into boxing, even if you're a sort of a casual fan, because you know the casual fan may not understand the feel-out process sometimes. There's no feel-out process with BOXXER. These guys get in there, the bell rings, and they're going at it. They're having at it right away. So I think this is being on terrestrial TV. This is kind of the best format of boxing to do it with.